Well, all this week, we've been interviewing the top candidates challenging John Kennedy for his U.S. Senate seat. Senator Kennedy was not able to join us due to scheduling conflicts this week, but his top three Democratic challengers were available. Gary Chambers Jr. joined us on Tuesday. Luke Mixon was here yesterday, and today we'll be talking with Syrita Steib.
Increasing weather threats, the economy, rising gas and food prices, healthcare, access to education, and the high maternal mortality rates in Louisiana. And the fact that our mothers in Louisiana die at a higher rate than anywhere in the country. There was a time when U.S. senators from Louisiana commanded tremendous respect and influence in Washington. I am asking for the opportunity to restore that respect for Louisiana and for you, its people. Let's put Louisiana first. I am Syrita Steib, and I approve this message.
And Syrita Steib is the founder and executive director of Operation Restoration, which aims to help women who serve time in prison return back to society. She's with us this morning to tell us about her campaign for U.S. Senate. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
And some of our viewers may be familiar with you. We had you on the show when you were pardoned by President Trump. We've had you on to talk about your work with Operation Restoration. For viewers not familiar, start with telling them a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so sure. I am the founder and executive director of Operation Restoration here in New Orleans. It focuses on helping currently and formerly incarcerated women and girls transition into society after incarceration. And I started the organization in 2016 because of my own experiences with incarceration at the age of 19.
Yeah, and you made such a big difference. You've gotten national recognition for the work that you've done, helping women who've gone to prison move back into society, that you were pardoned by President Trump, and you've changed a lot of laws to help people move back into society.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I say all the time I'm the only person in this race that is actually qualified and has the experience to start creating policy from day one. I have participated, advocated, and passed about 17 pieces of legislation across this country to date, and they all really address inequities and barriers so people who are in society currently can attempt to have a better life.
And as you said, you have done a lot of work that has made change already. What made you look at this U.S. Senate race and say, I need to jump into this?
About 2 years ago, I was working here in the Louisiana State Legislature, and we had a piece of legislation that we were trying to push through. And one of the legislators who were carrying the bill at the time, he kind of wavered on his support of the bill because personally it would have come at a cost to him. And in that moment, I began to understand that it was absolutely imperative and necessary that people who are elected to public office put people first and had the community at the forefront of everything that they did. I can't imagine myself saying no and not wanting to push policy forward that could possibly make me unpopular or make me unfavorable in some people's eyes, and I know that it literally saves people's lives. So at that moment, I began to think about what was the next step and what should I be doing and what more could I be doing, and that is when I realized that I needed to be inside of the legislative body to be that person that people need to reach out to in order to bring relief to their lives and their communities.
Gotcha. All right. Well, from a political standpoint, we've had, of course, the top contenders on this week. Gary Chambers Jr. labels himself as a progressive. Luke Mixon, a moderate. Where do you fall when it comes to your outlooks and policies?
Well, it's funny. I think it depends on who's talking about me. But I think that I am for the right thing. I think that I'm able to work with anybody to get something done. As you mentioned earlier, my previous pardon by Donald Trump, I am on the opposite side of the fence with him 99.9% of the time. But the one time that we were on the same side of the fence for the First Step Act, which brought relief to sentencing reform in the federal government, we happen to be on the same side of the fence, and it's my responsibility as someone who represents communities to put my personal feelings aside and get the job done. So I label myself as somebody who will do whatever it takes to get to the finish line to bring relief to the state and to our communities.
All right, and then early voting starts next Tuesday. How are you feeling as it's almost time for voters to go into the polls, especially from a funding standpoint? Kennedy is dominating when it comes to funding. He has more than $15 million. You have about $20,000 in campaign funding right now. Does that worry you? do you have enough money to get your voice out to voters?
So it's absolutely a challenge, and it's something that I think about regularly. We all know the statistics around women raising money. I'm the only woman out of 13 candidates on the ballot currently. And money is what brings accessibility and notoriety to your campaign. Money is how people get to know you because you're able to put ads on TV. You know, I heard my opponent say yesterday that he's on all the TV markets. I don't want that to be my only claim to fame. I want people to know who I am, what I stand for, and support me and donate if necessary. I have a big fundraiser coming up tomorrow morning. I'm endorsed by Congressman Troy Carter, and we're doing a breakfast in the morning to try to infuse some funds. But yeah, funding is definitely a concern, but I know the people of Louisiana are all feeling the crunch. We're all tight in money coming out of this pandemic and the inflation that we're all facing currently. So I'm gonna keep pushing, irrespective of how much money that I have, to try to get my message out to as many people as possible. And I have a strong volunteer base.
All right, and I looked on your website. You do have a 5-point plan for things you would like to tackle. You've seen some of the interviews with other candidates this week. Some of the things we've talked about that voters are concerned about are abortion rights, decriminalizing marijuana. You spoke about the economy and inflation. What are some of the top things you would change if you were elected?
So absolutely. I'm definitely pro-reproductive rights. Reproductive rights and the support of women and our choice around body autonomy is so important. It is at the top of my platform and the things that I focus on. I think the other piece that we have to also bring forth is voting rights. This morning, a story came out on NPR around a new definition of blackness and what black is. And it is in front of the Supreme Court. They are hearing a case out of Alabama, and that is another way that the vote of black people is being disenfranchised. So it's also my duty to bring people information, things that they need to start paying attention to. So that is another big push that we would have, is to really address voting rights and, the maps. The other big piece for me is a lot of times these things are allowed because of the language that is in foundational documents that the framers created. So I also want to focus on striking the language out of these foundational documents so we don't have to have the same conversations every 20 years.
All right, Syrita Steib, running for U.S. Senate for Louisiana. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about yourself and your platform. Guys, so now we have interviewed all of the top contenders in this race. If you missed those interviews, they'll be on our website, wwltv.com, as well as our YouTube page and our app.